Have you ever seen a speedrunner lower their render distance in the ocean? They're trying to get a dolphin to spawn around them, since the dolphin's grace they give can allow you to travel at 9.8 blocks per second compared to a boat's 8. This is great information to know, and now that you know it too, you can use it in your everyday Minecraft gameplay. That's what this video is about, taking common speedrunning tactics and showing you how they can be applied to how you play. Let's get started. If you run into a shipwreck while traversing the ocean, it's super beneficial to know where the good loot is. Shipwrecks have 3 main chests: a supply, treasure, and map chest. A full ship will have all 3, while partial ships will have a combination of 1 or 2 of the chests. If you need food, the pointed front is where you'll find the supply chest, which can give you loot like carrots, wheat, potatoes, suspicious stew, and even TNT. For the treasure chest, you need to head to the rounded back of the ship, where you can find an assortment of ores. Finally, in the middle you'll find the map chest, which will always give you a buried treasure map. Speaking of buried treasures, you've probably seen those memes of people digging the entire world trying to find it. It's actually very easy to find if you know how though, and all it requires is for you to open the F3 screen. Under the block section, these 3 numbers inside the brackets are your chunk coordinates. A buried treasure will always spawn at the coordinates 9, 9, so if you dig down on that block, you'll always find it. On your crosshairs, the red line points in the positive X direction, while the blue line points towards positive Z. Using these guides, you can figure out which directions to scooch to find 9, 9. Along the same lines, when you're trying to locate the stronghold and you've identified the chunk that it's in, if you dig down at the chunk coordinates 4, 4, you are guaranteed to find the starting staircase. I recommend making one of those numbers a 5 though, since you'll avoid going splat on the floor or plopping into lava through the staircase. If you aren't using subtitles, I'd highly recommend turning them on in your accessibility settings, since it shows you exactly where sounds you're hearing are coming from. In the stronghold, the first time you come within 16 blocks of the silverfish spawner in the portal room, it spawns a few silverfish. So as long as you haven't spawned any others yourself, like by punching blocks or something, if you hear some and then see it on the subtitles, you can use the arrow to know the direction of the portal room, even through walls. Now, instead of the end of the game, here's a tactic for the very beginning. When you start punching your first tree, take your first 2 logs and craft them into a crafting table and 8 sticks. You can do this super quick by holding shift and double clicking left and right click at the same time in the crafting window. This will craft the table and sticks at the same time. This little tip is totally unnecessary for most people, but I still think it's a cool little trick to make things a bit quicker. You've probably seen a portal built in a lava pool like this, sometimes called the Speedrunner's portal, and it's actually super useful to know how to make at any given time. Since 1 block in the nether is 8 blocks in the overworld, if you find yourself out on an adventure and you want to get home quickly, all you have to do is find a lava pool and you can make your way home 8 times faster. Start by finding a 4 block long stretch of lava on the side. Pro tip, you can use blocks yourself to create the 4 blocks if there isn't one naturally. Then place a block on one of the center blocks, place the water on the other center block, then break the block you placed. Behind one of the obsidians you created, build up 3 blocks, then out 1 block. On the other side, build 2 blocks like this. Place the water on the upside down L you made, and then place lava in the gaps to make the shape of the portal. Then all you have to do is fill in the bottom 2 blocks if necessary, clear the water, and be on your way. I'm pretty sure at one point or another, we've all tried to find a bastion or fortress in the nether, only to travel hundreds of blocks and find nothing. This issue brings us to my favorite of the speedrunning tactics, the F3 screen pie chart. Bring up the chart with F3 and 1, and pressing the corresponding numbers for tick and level, you'll be presented with a couple options. The 2 options you'll be using are entities and block entities. By selecting entities, you can view every rendered entity in your world. This is what you'd use to find a bastion. The key to finding them is the piglin brute, since they can only spawn in bastions. If you see one on the list of mobs, lower your render distance until it disappears. I'd recommend refreshing your F3 screen every time you make a change, since it can be a little finicky. Once you've found the lowest distance where it isn't on the list, check every side of the chunk you're in. You can see chunk borders by pressing F3 and G. The side where it appears is the approximate direction of the closest bastion. You can do the exact same thing to find the nearest fortress as well. By selecting block entities instead of entities, you can view things like chests and spawners in your rendered world. The goal is to detect the fortress's blaze spawner. Doing the exact same process, but with the subject being the spawner instead of a piglin brute, you should be able to find the nearest fortress. There's a chance the spawner you detect is a magma cube spawner in a treasure bastion, and if that's the case, you can either decide to break the spawner and do the process again, or you'll have to find a fortress randomly from there. This whole technique can also apply to structures in the overworld like trial chambers, which usually require a map to find. Since every Minecraft speedrun has to visit the fortress, there are tons of little tactics to use in certain situations there. There are 2 halves in every fortress. In this room with the lava in the middle is the transition from the enclosed hallways with the chests and the open bridges with spawners. From the enclosed portion, you can always follow a couple key rules to find this room every time. Rule number 1 is to always go down the hallways opposite the balconies. And rule number 2 is to always go up any stairs, besides the nether wart room stairs, which you go down. Using just these 2 tips will almost always bring you to the other half. When dealing with wither skeletons, there are multiple things you can do to neutralize them. When in an enclosed hallway, placing blocks 3 blocks up will always stop them from reaching you since they're 3 blocks tall. In an enclosed bridge, you can just place blocks across the ground and it will do the same thing. Dealing with them on the open bridge is a little different, but there are 2 main methods. The first is to build up 4 blocks in the middle of the bridge and then punch them off the edge. And the second is to build 2 2-block pillars with blocks connecting them to block them from reaching you. At a blaze spawner, speedrunners will typically have fire resistance from trading with piglins, but if you don't have that, there are still great ways to fight blazes. The best alternative to fire res is a shield, which can block the blaze's fireballs. The one flaw with the shield is the ability for a blaze to shoot fireballs over it if it's higher than you. To prevent this, hold spacebar to jump repeatedly when fighting them, and the fireballs won't be able to hit you above your shield. If you don't have a shield, you have to get a little bit more creative. On most spawners, build 2 pillars on either side of the walkway, and when they have the fire around them indicating they're about to launch fireballs, run back and forth between the 2 pillars. They'll throw them at you as you run, but eventually they'll run out of fireballs and then you could go in for the cleanup. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about some of the overall things speedrunners do to do things efficiently. Movement is the thing in Minecraft you do the most, and since you do it all the time, knowing all the ways to do it as quickly as possible is key. When running under trees or other 2-block spaces, doing head hitters by spamming spacebar makes you go so much faster. Not many people know this, but by holding spacebar instead of tapping spacebar while you sprint jump, you can go slightly faster due to Minecraft's momentum properties. Shifting diagonally instead of straight is always faster, but you can also sprint shift by sprint jumping and then shifting in the middle of your jump. You can also do this diagonally, so it ends up being the safest, fastest way to run around an ancient city. If you have an elytra, you can spam spacebar before coming in contact with the ground to do what's called an elytra hop, which you can do repeatedly. For faster strip mining, you can do what's called sprint crawling, by entering and exiting a boat while sprinting into a 1-block tunnel. This tactic can be super useful getting around places like the nether as well. One little thing I want to mention right now is the benefit of having dedicated hotkeys for your hotbar slots. Numbers 1 through 4 and maybe 5 are good for half the slots, but finding more keys for the others makes doing pretty much everything easier. Obviously, you can use the scroll wheel to do the same thing, but having dedicated keys is both faster and more accurate. There have been multiple times where I can attribute my survival to having keybinds ready for quick clutching. This right here is a bastion loot chest, and what most people would do to loot it is double click on an item, bring them all into one stack, and then shift click them in your inventory. But a speedrunner would do this. It's called quick looting, and it's one of the coolest things I've learned from speedrunning. To do it, click one of your hotkeys, shift click the empty slot, hit the hotkey again, then shift click the slot again. So it goes hotkey, shift click, hotkey, shift click. If you do this fast enough, it will bring all that specific item in your hotkey slot in your hotbar. You can do this with any item in the game, including non-stackable ones. This can be useful when looting any chest in any structure, or just emptying a chest at your base. One of a speedrunner's favorite things to find in a run is TNT, since having explosives on hand is great for things like collecting the gold chalice quickly or clearing out space at a blaze spawner. TNT can be used for collecting tons of blocks like sand, blowing up trees to quickly get wood, or to mine for netherite. Beds are also perfect for trying to find netherite since they're cheap, but very effective at clearing space. When talking about everyday use items, I think there are 3 that are in a class of their own. But before I say what they are, here are my honorable mentions. First, the shield. I know a lot of people might put this in their top 3, but personally, I find the items above it to be more useful in more situations. The shield has one purpose, to block incoming damage, and it does that perfectly. It can save your life in perilous situations and make life easier when trying to fight certain mobs. But since it really only does that one task, I have to put it in a close 4th place. My second honorable mention is the wind charge. Added in 1.21, I found it to be the most useful when building, since you can quickly hop on top of whatever you're working on. Plus, if you pair it with an elytra, it works as a mini firework replacement. It can also be used as a ranged weapon or in redstone projects, but movement is definitely the most used application. Now, onto the top 3 items for everyday use. The first one is the bucket. The bucket can hold multiple different liquids, but the 2 best are water and lava. With a water bucket, you can MLG, swim up walls, move mobs or items, quench fire, and make nether portals. With a lava bucket, you can kill mobs, get cooked meat, clutch to slow your fall on a wall if you want to do that, and use it for fuel for smelting items. Next up is the flint and steel, which when used correctly can be one of the best items in the game. Not only can you light portals in TNT, but you can cook mobs with it to get food, use it to change mobs pathfinding, use it to light yourself momentarily to take no knockback, and even to light your boat on fire to cross longer gaps. Yes, that's real. I don't even know how. On that note, my final and favorite item is definitely the boat. This item is so overpowered now, and the fact that it came from such humble beginnings is kind of ironic. Here is just a quick list of things you can use it for. Floating down slowly, floating down even slower, clutching, extending your jump, sprint crawling, using it for its intended purpose on the water, ice boating, trapping hostile mobs, transporting mobs, and connecting them with leads. Speedrunners also use them for measuring Eyes of Ender, since it puts you on an angle with 3 decimal places of precision, leading to more precise measuring. I still carry all 3 of these items with me on my 1000-day survival world, so that just goes to show how useful they can be in all stages of the game. Hopefully you found this video useful, and if you want to learn more about speedrunning, click this video here. Thanks for watching.